Today's video is all about Near Protocol, the blockchain for AI. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what? Let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. And the question is Near Protocol an opportunity? Guys, today we're doing a deep dive. We'll be doing some research. We'll be going through this project in a fair bit of detail, trying to figure out, what the fundamentals are and if they are bullish. If ultimately we want to take a bit of a chance here and pack some bags for the continuation up here in this cycle, because we're seeing a bit of strength in this market, and we definitely need to start picking our teams. Like which projects are we actually allocating into? Because really, once the train leaves the station, it's a bit too late. And I feel like Near Protocol is definitely a contender, but without knowing its fundamentals, it's going to be hard to really know what we're getting into. So today's deep dive is going to be interesting. Of course, we're going to be getting to some of those details. Again, as I mentioned, the team, tokenomics, utility, overall value proposition. And like I said, do we scale in or not? And what we really have to understand is that at this current moment, we could start to see an inflow of retail investors. What that means is that it's very important that Near Protocol as a team, obviously give us the fundamental information that we need to get fundamentally bullish from a retail perspective. And the reason is because if we want mass adoption, we are going to need that information. And these are what these deep dives are about. This is what the deep dive is about. We'll be using the website. We will be using any documentation that the team has provided for us, and any other information across socials to actually, gather and really get bullish here if it's the case that we need to, right? So let's get right into it. Let's kind of see what's going on here. The blockchain for AI. I like the fact that they start off like that. With that statement, it's a very clean statement, but at the same time, very telling. And the reality is that Near did pivot to focus on AI, and I appreciate that it's doing that. But we also have to understand that Near Protocol is not just about AI. It offers a lot of other fundamentally bullish details that can be translated to many different case utilities. But its focus right now, and its focus on its tech stack, is for AI, which in my book is good. It's a good thing. Let's continue. Let's continue. Scalable, AI native cross-chain. This is interesting because they got a lot happening within their internal ecosystem, combining the best of sharding, scaling, AI native transactions, and cross-chain functionality. Near delivers a user-focused, decentralized ecosystem at a global scale. So, we've been looking at a lot of AI projects in the last, year or so, ranging from different sub-narratives like AI agents and so on. But in this case, we've seen a lot of these projects miss the mark, and a lot of it has to do with decentralization, especially with its backend deep in infrastructure, or even other aspects, right? So I'm glad to see that Near Protocol is one of the projects that has AI to its title, but also provides all the decentralization necessary to call this a decentralized protocol. From a backend L1 perspective, just keep in mind this is an L1, right? And it's focusing and it's tailoring itself to the AI narrative. The all-in-one AI blockchain infrastructure. That's another good statement. And it's literally a one-stop shop for AI. So developers and Web3 builders can create AI-driven application, automated transactions, build financial or commerce tools without fragmented ecosystems. So all under one roof. And of course, that is good because ultimately the ecosystem can provide everything you need under one roof. So which means that everything that is created from the tech stack perspective is tailored for the AI narrative, which is ideal. Taking this approach is something that we've seen across all a lot of L1s, specializing on the various narratives like real world assets and so on, and gaming and so on. And here we see a Near Protocol saying, you know what, I'm focusing on AI, and I think it's a good one. We've seen a Near Protocol heavily involved within the AI space in the last little while, which is good. Being at the NVIDIA conferences and speaking at the NVIDIA conferences, which is great. Ultimately giving, exposure to that retail market in addition to the industry altogether. And this is a good thing, right? So being involved, getting that face time. AI and Web3 development made easy. So we can see that just by the snippets of code and the few titles here, build faster with JavaScript and familiar developer tools. So we're talking about aiding the ecosystem growth. This is what I translate this to, right? Frictionless or less friction for developers to come in and build on Near Protocol. So Near continues to expand its core competence, enabling secure, user-focused applications at every stage. So this is important because we need some more ecosystem growth amongst many L1s, not just Near Protocol, because ultimately the utility of the token is going to give us an incentive to not only hold the token, but to stake it up, right? To actually have that exposure, especially as we see the market show a bit of strength. So we see ecosystem translate into utility, and utility obviously transition into, token value, the value of the token itself, or the coin itself in this case for Near. AI integration, this is something, like I mentioned, a quick pivot into this narrative earlier on was a smart idea in my book, that specialization into the AI. So agents, this is a hot topic, one of the hottest topics, even in Web 2. If you're not even talking about Web 3, even in Web 2, a lot of major players are talking about these agents. We got our first wave and first introduction to the AI agents in the crypto space. However, in my book, they were very, very early to release and to basically hit the market, because a lot of them are not ready for product market fit. They're not ready for that, right? And we've seen a lot of them fail because of it, unfortunately. So what we are hoping is that Near Protocol, in fact, has enough of a back-end infrastructure to support a fully decentralized ecosystem that can release AI agents in a valuable way. Right? This is important here, guys, because of the AI agents that we've seen so far have either very little utility or are completely centralized to the point that, it's all dependent on the dev team to keep them alive, which I don't appreciate anyway. So I'm hoping that Near can bring us a fresh perspective on what agents are about and the value of an agent going forward, not only in Web 2, but also here in the Web 3 space. So AI agents manage assets and services autonomously. This is one of the main value propositions of an AI agent. So, and not only autonomously, but in a very decentralized way, right? And at the same time, allowing the developer or the creator or the deployer of the AI agent basically ownership, right? Decentralized, but also full custody of the asset, which is the AI agent. And we're going to talk about this in a second with regard to Near's value proposition. So, chain abstraction streamlines cross-network execution. Obviously, it is EVM compatible, right? So which means that any Ethereum-based project that was written on Solidity, contract written on Solidity, and the liquidity available on Ethereum chain is also available and attracted to the Near L1. So which is good. Comprehensive documentation, I could agree. There's lots of documentation, and community resource speed up development. Okay, so pretty good. Everything is looking pretty good. Now they do have pages that we can go look at, like Explore the Docs and Explore AI. I already did that for you guys. I went through a lot of the pages and kind of extracted the important ones that we should focus on. Obviously, I'm just going to throw this out here. Near Protocol is not a brand new project. It's been around for a bit and it has a lot to offer with regards to documentation. If I go through every little nook and cranny, this deep dive is going to be very, very long. So we'll kind of keep it a bit superficial, but at the same time, focus on the things that are super important, like AI. So we have AI, of course, chain abstraction, intents, and blockchain. Okay, a little bit of, jargon there. Be a part of the global open open source community of developers, OSS components, and applications. There's a lot of applications ecosystem wise that we could talk about. Learn, connect, and collaborate. So docs, blog, learn center. They have like a learning scenario, almost like a school that they got going on for you, so you can learn about how to deploy contracts and so on. The latest news, which is a great way to keep up with what's happening here with the blog. I've seen a lot of projects, particularly ones that are backed by a DAO or governed by a DAO. They rely on blogs to keep their, their holders and their community up to speed with what's happening. And this is where, I get a little bit, I wish they had a formal roadmap, something that was very clear, like where are they going next. But when you're talking about a DAO or, that's governed with governance, basically, decentralized autonomous organization, what happens is you're relying on the DAO to really tell, where things are going. So I understand that a concrete roadmap might be a little difficult, but at least something where we can kind of fall back on to kind of get where the team and everything is going in a very clear and transparent way would be awesome. So I like the blog idea, but I really don't see any clear roadmap, and we'll talk about that as we go through also. News, pretty good. Again, up to date. This is the blog. Go check it out. They got near ecosystem newsletters coming out all the time. So go check it out if you want to know what's happening with the ecosystem, because you guys know that I'm really big on following ecosystem growth. Without ecosystem, guys, there's very little utility for holding a coin or a token. So think about it like that. And then finally, the footer, lots of information here. You can see the platform, the blockchain, if you want to know more behind the physics and their very unique consensus mechanism that makes things very, very fast. I'm not going to get too much into the tech here because it's going to get into a physics lesson, but I want to stay very crypto based. We want to touch all upon the major topics of a deep dive that gives us a good understanding and a very broad understanding from a crypto perspective and a coin perspective. Because then ultimately we get into a very tech-based deep dive, which I'm not planning to get into here. So you can see, there's lots of good links to various different let's say categories. If you want to connect with the community, they're all over the place. They got a Discord, Telegram, everything, even WeChat, they got it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see anything regarding the team that was very clearly published on the website, unfortunately. But I got some info for you guys, so stay tuned. We got some ecosystem if you want to know about that. The founders, again, we'll talk about that in a second, and some other stuff here with regards to developers. If you're a dev and you want some information, you got the support right here. So very clear, very nice website, lots of information, straight to the point, and then back to the top where you can see that they give emphasis to the near AI. Okay, so this is super cool. Like the fact that they are clearly, giving themselves a focus, and they clearly give you that focus on the website. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's continue on. I got a lot of links open already for you guys, so let's jump right into this. Quickly look at what's going on with the AI aspect of things, because I believe that it's one of the major value propositions here, because really it's where they're focusing. So it's almost like it's got a broad value proposition, which is it's an L1 with lots of capabilities from a standard L1 perspective, competing with the best, like being able to compete with even Ethereum from a tech perspective. Right? But then also we say, okay, well, but what about its specialization, which is the AI concept? They got a lot of native, tech that's going to separate it from a broad L1, right? Specialization here. Okay, so let's keep on going down. So Near is the home for AI and Web3 builders. So lots of support here. Now, what I would suggest, if you're very interested, guys, this video is super, super long, but nonetheless, it's very valuable. They literally showcase every aspect, every layer of their tech stack from the AI perspective on this video. It's long. You got the founders, you got lots of members of the team talking about every single layer, that you may be interested here and how the AI is being integrated. So I would highly recommend that you watch the video because there's a lot happening here, and you can see that we're talking about hyperbolic, Mizu. These are very common projects that have been buzzing around for the last little while when connected to Near, and obviously Aurora and many others. So feel free to go check all watch this, because I think it's going to be valuable. But you can see that it's summarized very quickly down here. Okay, it's summarized very quickly in the sense that you got your application, so your dev, your business, your consumer. This is what you're going to use it for. Agentic framework and payments and so on. But things get interesting here. This is where Near Protocol kind of separates itself from every other AI, let's say even agent or AI platform out there. And there are some, I'm going to say that there are some that have that deep in infrastructure and that compute. But here, clearly, with its market cap and its track record and its team and everything else, you kind of lend itself to be a solid and valid project because of this. Infrastructure model specialization. Okay, we talked about that. Edge, intelligence, training, inference, and compute. This is the most important thing, because literally what we're talking about is a decentralized compute infrastructure here. So it's processing. When we're talking about AI, we know that processing is, hungry. It's very necessary to have processing speed, whether it be using GPUs or any other factor or any other, framework. But ultimately, we know that the majority of the frameworks nowadays require that we have a processing that has multi-core processing, like what GPUs offer. And we know the whole concept of GPUs and their scarcity and this and that, and in the decentralization aspect of all of this compute. So really, this is where we're at right now. We're talking about Near, its compute capabilities in a decentralized fashion, and what relationships does Near have to support that? And does this equate to a relationship that involves NVIDIA? This is where a lot of people get very speculative. Like, is this the case? Given that they've been very close in the last little while, it could be the case that this compute infrastructure could definitely benefit from that relationship. Whether it be a strategic partnership in the future or not, it's still a relationship that could give Near Protocol an edge. Okay, so very interesting here. Now, we can even go on forward, right? A decentralized storage, again, back to that deep in infrastructure concept. It's not just about compute processing power, but it's also about decentralization with regards to storage. And this is all within the umbrella of AI, not a general L1, because we know there are some general L1s that will argue that they can offer this, but this is all in-house under one umbrella, under one roof. Their tech stack right here is clearly dedicated to the AI narrative, given that they also have decentralized storage, where the data that is going to be curated or collected or synthesized, whatever it is going to be decentralized with the possibility of complete ownership of the user, such as us, right? So this is something that's super important, because AI in general is an asset if you think about it from its processing, and not only that, from its decentralized storage or its memory that it may have. Okay, so this is where the value comes in here, value proposition for AI number one, for sure, for Near Protocol. So very interesting stuff here. As we go down, we can see that even within the Near AI system, they got their own little ecosystem happening here. One of the major ones being Massa, that's been doing very well. Hyperbolic being spoken about quite a bit. And I'm sure I'm missing out a few, but really, guys, do your research. Go check out what these smaller projects are doing, because what's really happening is that they're offering support for such a bigger project that it's almost like a proxy, right? If Near Protocol does well, you can expect to see a lot of these projects underneath it within its ecosystem to do very well. Okay, so this is an opportunity to do a bit more research and do more deep dives into a more speculative asset projects, but still provide lots of value going forward. Okay, so Near is the best build for, chain for builders. Again, get involved. There are lots of links. Near AI developer resources and news and so on. You can see this is what I was talking about. This is the founders. This is full on. This is a great relationship, to the point that they highlighted him touching his elbow. Very interesting stuff here. Okay, so upcoming events, Bitcoin acceleration, and so on. Interesting stuff. Okay, so that's the AI concept. So I'm going to quickly scroll to the up here. But what I really want to do is wrap this up with one concept: user owned. This is important. Okay, because throughout this, we got the insinuation that this is going to be the case. And so I did mention it. But what I like about the fact is that really what they're pushing forward is that, yes, it's deep in. Yes, it's completely decentralized. Yes, it's a fast L1. Yes, they're AI. But guess what? It's user owned. It's going to be complete. It's an asset that is going to be completely owned by the user rather than the team or whatever the case, the infrastructure itself taking so much control over the information and everything that it has to do with the AI. For me, this is important as an individual that did release an AI agent. I truly understand now what it means to have a decentralized agent, completely decentralized agent. So for me, this is very, very interesting. All right, guys, let's move on because we got a lot of things to talk about here. Now, this is their ecosystem. I'm going to jump right into this because you're probably thinking, okay, where do we go with this, right? Because there's obviously more information. Their white paper is full on, but I found it a lot more useful just to kind of navigate some of their pages because their white paper is very technical and it's a PDF and so on, and they got lots of good things out there, but we'll try to get through it all. Don't worry. So as you can see, there's some trending application, Rail Finance. If you're looking to DeFi, there's some memes. Obviously, they try to keep up with the trend and so on and so forth. So you can see you can see that there are some projects that you could probably pinpoint or recall, but a lot of them are very small. A lot of them, Black Dragon, that's been around, a meme, of course, and still like Dex Tools, okay, we can identify that, and Dex Screener. These are all, cross-platform scenarios. It's not that it's going to only be dedicated to Near, but you can see that if these are the ones that are trending, it's not like we have really major trending projects here. And this is one of the things that a lot of people say about Near Protocol, because Near is, what is it really doing? Well, it's not really, out there just yet. But if you're going to wait for it to actually make its major breakthrough, it might be too late. So we're still in speculation phase. Although it is a larger cap, although its tech stack is awesome, its ecosystem hasn't had its major breakthrough yet, right? So this is the reality. Now you can see that this is the trending ones. And let's go to ecosystem map to see what this, oh, let's not leave this just yet. What else do we got here? This is the trending. Yeah, click that again. And then people, virtual chain abstraction. So there's a lot happening here. Near catalog, let's click that. A lot happening here. If you go below, you can see that there's lots of various categories, NFTs and so on, EVM compatible projects. If you're looking for cross-chain with Ethereum, DAOs and DEXs, let's go to the DEX, the main DEX, of course, Ria Finance and so on. There's a lot happening here to kind of consider, but really you should do a bit of research on various like even DeSci, like they even got DeSci, OpenCan, Open Forest. You get what I mean? So even narratives that haven't even picked up just yet, they have a bit of exposure, but no major breakthroughs yet. But still decent for its size. Decent. They're working on it and they're trying to get going, which is good. Now, if you continue going on, you can see that if you go to CoinGecko, they have a full list of various projects that are available on the network. As you can see, you got the typical EVM compatible contracts and so on, but you got Aurora, which is one of the major ones for Near Protocol, and you got some others that obviously were Octopus Network and Cream. These are Ref Finance, another OG that's been around for a while, and a few others. Okay, so just keep in mind that these projects are definitely here, and they're definitely on the list. It's not like they didn't make it to major aggregators like CoinGecko and so on. So do your research, guys. There's a lot of them, and again, remember they're proxy plays. We're depending on Near Protocol to do well for these smaller projects that are native to Near to do well also. Okay, so that's that. Let's move on. Papers. So this is where things got a little bit in depth. This is their white paper. Okay, so we can open up this. This is their night shade, which is, just to quickly say, this is their sharding mechanism, right, which gets a little bit technical, far and beyond, let's say, this deep dive, and their doom slug, which is their consensus, so basic confirmation with a single round, making things super fast. So if you want to know more about this tech, obviously you're gonna have to read a tech paper, right? So again, I'm not getting into that. This is their nightshade, a very tech-based paper. Feel free to go check it out. They got lots of info. They're not leaving you in the shade, right? They're literally giving you everything you need from a physics perspective to actually know exactly exactly how it works, so go check it out. So that's their paper. So lots of information, and I appreciate that for those of us that want to get into that much depth. And then this is like their hub. I call this a hub for all their docs, right? If you kind of click here, you got all their documents, everything under one roof that you may want to look at. For me, from a deep dive perspective, it's a little bit info overload. Just a little bit, right? So when I look for a white paper, a tech or a crypto-based white paper, I want something that is, all very clean, all on one page, maybe a Git book or something like that. This could be a little daunting, to be honest. Could be a little bit intimidating for a lot of people, because where do you click and where do you go? What is near, and what is train? So basically, this whole thing is not only like you know a white paper or even a doc where you can get through all the information, but it's also learning. There's a lot here. You can learn a lot of it, because it even basically tries to teach you what are Web3 applications. So even primitives, what are primitives? What are NFTs? What are, so on. So there's a lot of educational resources here as well to help you really understand what NEAR is trying to achieve. Now, is this information overload? I think a little bit, because even what is a contract? Building smart contract. There's too much here. But then again, I couldn't really find a proper white paper or a proper, tech-based, not a tech-based, because they got the tech-based, but a Web3 white paper. The ones that I'm typically used to when I do my deep dives, right? So I've done almost 100 deep dives, and I'm looking for specific documentation that makes it easy for the retail investor to absorb the information. And that is a very valuable tool, because ultimately, if they want, to achieve easy, frictionless mass adoption, they need to have some documentation that is tailored towards the average retail investor. Now, one may say, more is better. No, sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is more for an introduction, and then also have this to get into that depth, because definitely they get into a lot of depth and lots of learning. So let's move on. So right into the thick of things with regards to tokenomics. I just feel like what's important here is to know that it's not a new project, okay? So they do have a history. I just want to show you that this document was released in 2020, so it is 5 years old, and I'm not going to use this as a main resource. This is just to show you guys that it's been around for a while, and the fact is that all of this tokenomics, in fact, a lot of the tokens are already in distribution. Total market cap, total tokens or coins are pretty much almost all in full distribution, which means that we don't run the risk of dilution. Now, it is an infinite max supply, and I understand what a lot of people are going to say. Well, that means that it could be inflationary. But good news is they do have a burning mechanism to keep inflation under control. So we're going to talk about this. Remember, this is not even worth maybe looking at unless you want to look at how it was released and how the overall tokenomics played out in the last 5 years. But the reality is, because they're fully diluted with regards to total, what we have to understand is that you're not risking dilution. You're not risking a major unlock for sell-off. So speaking about that, let's quickly look at this. You can see that the next unlock is only releasing 0.76%. Majority of it is already in distribution. You can see that based on here. All you have is this little bit. Okay, so it's not much, guys. So slow and steady distribution unlock, and I don't anticipate a lot of sell pressure because of the small unlocks that are coming out in the next little while. Various categories, community grants, that's actually bullish. Rewards, okay, fine, that's actually good. Core contributors, they gotta eat, we get it. And then operation grants, okay, devs and ecosystem growth and so on. You got lots of good things. Foundation, not really happening, but they're gonna. The reality is that tokenomics is created in such a way where the foundation and is going to continuously have a bit of inflow, which is important. We're going to talk about tokenomics in a little bit more detail. I just wanted to show you here that you're not risking much. The reality is if you're worried about an unlock, there's nothing really to worry about in the next little while. Okay, so let's move on. This is another important thing, and you keep this in mind because this has everything to do with its burn mechanism. You can see that the NEAR daily transaction chart is on an uptrend and has been looking very strong in the last little while, which means that if the burn rate is tagged to or pegged to the daily transactions, basically they're going to be burning a lot more. And you can see that's the case. We're seeing a lot more transactions, which means that their burning mechanism is waking up a little bit. Okay, so that's important. Let's keep on going because there's a lot of good metrics here. Now, this page right here is probably the most important, which gives you a little bit about the tokenomics, and you can see that there's a lot happening here. But what's important here to understand is that there's a little bit of outdated information because it was released in 2020, April 23rd, 2020, but it gives you a little bit of understanding of what it is and what it's all about, right? So let's kind of go through this a little bit and show you the main details that I would like you to focus on. The principles of open web as follows. Okay, principles are followed. So it is a native cryptocurrency. Okay, so it offers some utility. These are the main utilities: security of the network. Okay, so proof of stake network, which means that ultimately your people that are going to use their liquidity or use their tokens and stake them, they're basically providing security and strength to the network. Also, for network usage fees, for any transactions that are be done, you're going, there's going to be a fee, a small fee, of course, that's typical. Medium of exchange, used as a currency within, let's say, different projects that are built. So this is a monetary function, enables to the creation of applications that use Near to charge for various functions. So basically being able to use it as a currency from application to application and a unit of account. So another network usage fees section is used to price the competition and storage of Near infrastructure. So for you to be able to get involved within the Near infrastructure or the backend infrastructure that it has. Interesting stuff, genesis and inflation. So just to talk about some concepts with regards to inflation. I know it's outdated, but this is not outdated. So there is a fixed amount of tokens that are going to be issued. Fixed issuance around 5% of the total supply each year. Okay, so this is important. So it is inflationary, right? But we have to understand that there is a burning mechanism to keep that at bay. This is very similar to the way Ethereum works and many L1s, right? Because L1s, they have a vision. Their vision is not to keep the tokens completely locked in their max supply to be completely concrete. They want to have flexibility there as the ecosystem grows. So, at launch, they had 1 billion tokens. Right. And then after that, what they're saying is if the ecosystem grows and we see growth, the DAO may choose to increase the total supply because there's an infinite max supply. So technically, there is a fixed issuance around 5% of the total supply each year, 90% of which goes to validators. So if validators are getting basically paid 90% of the increase of supply, this is basically suggesting that validators are doing a job. Their job in exchange for computing, storage, securing transactions, and ultimately, if you understand what's happening here, you're basically saying, I approve as long as validators are doing something. Because if validators are doing something, that means that there's transactions happening. If there's transactions happening, that means the burning mechanism is working. And if the burning mechanism is working, that means it becomes deflationary. And therefore, there is a supply shock. And if you're holding, you want the supply shock because the price of the token will go up. So there's a huge chain of events here that happens. And, the engineering behind the economics is very important. This is what a lot of people, when they see max supply, they say, oh, that means they could just dump on the market. Well, because it's a DAO and because, the team and no one fixed individual has the privilege to just print capital, print more tokens, I feel like we should be in a safe scenario that we can, the DAO will vote, the governance will vote on whether more circulating supply or maybe to adjust the burning rate or adjust the overall function here. Very interesting. As mentioned above, all transaction fees collected by the network get burned. Interesting. So everything whichever transaction goes through this network gets burned. Therefore, really, ultimately, the inflation rate is not that high. So it's actually more or less 5% minus the transaction fees because yes, there is a fixed amount of total supply entering, but as the transactions goes up, the burning rate increases, so therefore it's going to be less than 5%. In fact, there's going to be a moment where if the transactions are much higher or go up a lot, it's going to be a point where it's going to be deflationary. Okay, and this is where, projects like Ethereum want to achieve this, where they can actually become deflationary. Okay, so this is a chart that kind of explains that. You can see after a certain amount of transactions, right around average number of transactions per day, you can see that eventually we get into a scenario where it becomes negative, deflationary. Okay, and that's where, things start to look really, really interesting for bag holders, because again, the supply shock and so on. Okay, so but still, the DAO could always vote something to cause more tokens to come in, and that's the beauty behind governance this way, is because things don't have to be so carved in stone, which I find interesting also, because you can play on the mechanisms quite a bit. But the main point is to show the inflation gets affected by usage. That's a golden statement right here. Okay, for those of you that are worried about tokenomics, this is the statement right here. Okay, so I'm not going to get into that too much. If you want to know more about the network usage and the fees, there's a little bit more info there. Storage, and there's fees with regards to storing and validating. This is a little bit important because it gets into a more detail about that. Validator rewards. So validators as a group are paid fixed 90% of the 5% total supply annualized. Other 10% goes to the protocol treasury, which is important because at the same time, the treasury from the DAO, or with it that gets put into governance, basically you could raise a bit of capital as the protocol does well. There's 10% that's going in there to fund various aspects of the project. For example, the first year validators will receive around X amount. Rewards are distributed per epoch and every half a day, which is on average this amount. So you can see that there's certain amount of flow that is not only going for validators, which keeps validators hungry and wants to and active, but at the same time gives some of those rewards to the protocol and the treasury, which is necessary to get things going. As you can see, lots of more metrics, selection, lots of good metrics. The tokenomics are on point here, guys. Protocol treasury, we allocated 10% of each epoch rewards to the treasury, as I mentioned. I'm not going to get into too much here because it's a lot of repetition and more detail that you guys can read on your own. Contract rewards and so on, lots of rewards. But again, the more action we get on chain, the more burning, the more tokens get burnt, and that's better for circulating supply and for the value of the token. That's the summary here. Overall, tokenomics are good. Now, if we continue going, right, we're going to start slowly get into the socials here. And the socials aspect here of this project is quite interesting. Why? Because they got a lot of community. Guys, look at this, 1.8 million followers. Insanity, right? So which means that, they're going to get a lot of attraction. My only concern is that given their size on X, their posts don't get that much traction. I'm very unfortunate. Now, we kind of know that the space is struggling right now. We know that the only people here with us are OGs at the current moment. We're here and we've been around and we're gonna stick through it, and we're gonna be the early ones, the ones that got in at the right time at the right place, and we were the quote unquote lucky ones. But the reality is that I'm expecting a full-on surge in social engagement when retail comes back and there's a bit of hype. Why? Because they got the base already. Right, they got the algorithm on their side. They got 1.8 million followers, guys. Right, so and ultimately, we've seen what they've done in the past, and this is something to really keep an eye on. And their whole engagement with AI, hot narrative, and so on. I expect their socials to really boom once retail comes back, and all where all the the shillers and the socials and everything comes back. I'm expecting some good stuff here. Now they also have a Medium. Okay, they also have a Medium page where they keep everybody up to date, all token holders, the communities, anybody that's interested. Lots of good stuff here you could read. Introducing the Open Agent Alliance. They got lots of cool stuff here, very again AI based. If you're within that narrative or interested in that narrative, of course, if you should be, given the fact that their focus is on AI, so feel free to check that out. And then this is their governance page, where if you're a token holder, you can come here and this is the DAO. This category is for all kinds of creative contributors in the near ecosystem. You can see development. These are all different categories where things happen with regards to proposals and voting and and so on and so forth. Check it out, guys. You might be interesting if you're interested. If you're a token holder, you can sign up and get all involved within the DAO and so on, right? So that's that. And then if we go here, the protocol roadmap, guys, they don't have a major or a clear defined roadmap. And so I went on their blog and I looked for the tag protocol roadmap. And the last, post was in 2024, September. Guys, that's old. It's outdated. Now, the question is this: has anything happened since then? I see some subtags: Nightshade 2.0, protocol roadmap, sharding. I think this is outdated. I think this is already fully in the works already, which is unfortunate because now what we're doing is we're hungry for the next step, right? We're speculating. What is Near doing now? So I think that it's very important, and they do have one more document that I wanted to present to you guys: Near Infrastructure Committee first year recap and 2025 priorities. So it's a little newer, December 29th, 2024. And they talk about 2024 in general, and then they go on to say ahead. And I'm focusing on ahead not only because we're well into 2025, but this is where we're at. Continuous improvements, obviously, fast near blocks. These are things that they're trying to improve. Working groups, setting up working groups to manage accounts, respond to proposals actively. So this is the DAO. Wallet improvements, sure, there's always that necessity. Single sign on from Near Wallet to Solana app. That's interesting. Chain abstraction infrastructure and decentralized AI infrastructure. So a little bit more detail would be awesome. Obviously, exactly what they're doing with all of this, I think this is a very, very vague, but that's all I got with regards to roadmap, guys. If you know of anything roadmap wise, where they're going next with regards to the tech and so on, feel free to share it in the comment section below. But it would be nice because then again, we don't have to kind of speculate. In this case, we know what they're focusing on, where they're putting their capital, human resources, and so on and so forth. So interesting stuff. And don't forget that in a DAO scenario, we rely on the DAO significantly to spell out where we're going next also. So I do see a correlation because, again, I do a lot of deep dives. I do see a correlation where there's a lot of centralization and when there's a DAO. When there's centralization by a team, they are a lot more comfortable, deploying a very concrete roadmap in the sense they know where they're going because the team, works together on a daily basis and, is doing their thing. Whereas a DAO, the team is technically not in charge. The DAO is in charge of where they're going next. And if that's the case, it's a little bit slow moving. To be honest, that is one of the limitations of a DAO. Making decisions and having clarity as far as decision making and direction is a little bit uncertain and slow moving, and that's part of the democratic process. It takes time. There's friction there, but at the same time, there's the benefit of the democratization of the project itself, which is also a benefit because of decentralization. So we have to give and take and accept what we get. In this case, clear visions are not the clearest until the DAO makes them clear, and sometimes that's why we don't see these roadmaps spelled out to us very nicely. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, this is the founders page, which I found a bit deceiving, or maybe I misinterpreted, but it does say founders. When I click it, I expected to see some, information regarding the team and the founders who created it and who's behind it. So unfortunately, no, you're going to get other resources. So feel free to check that out. But if you start looking into the team itself, and you start getting on their LinkedIn page, which is, public, you can get on there. You can see that it's 153 associate members. So there's a lot happening here, a lot of people. So that's good, big team. And if you scroll through, you can see there's lots of talent, right? Tons. Crypto, DeFi, NFT enthusiasts. We got head of ecosystem strategy, Near Foundation, co-founder of something. We got lots of good stuff here, protocol and blockchain and individual, blockchain dev, talent everywhere you could expect. It's a big project. Senior product manager, this and that, co-founder of some other thing. So you got some people that are in the space, actively in the space. For the most part, I focus on the founders themselves. Good leadership is definitely going to be something that I'm more interested in. But you can see ventures and ecosystem builder and Near. So many. I bet you they got legal. They got all kinds of people happening here. Software engineer, manager, this and that. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on with the actual founders. So we got this dude right here. We got Alex. He's the co-founder of Near Protocol. I don't think he's very out there in the sense that well known, but I've seen a couple of their members being well known. But still, look, guys, these guys, he's definitely talented. He's a co-founder at Near, of course, and he's got some director of engineering, senior software developer at Microsoft. What else do we want, right? This guy's there. He's it, right? So lots of stuff here. You can see lots of good stuff, and this is the other founder of Near that made a statement there below on his page on his profile. But guys, talent for sure. Let's go on to the next one. We got another one. This is the main dude. This is the main dude right here, Ilya, Near Protocol. He's the one that's pretty much the face at the current moment. He's all over the place with regards to Near. So he's another co-founder. He's an engineering manager at Google Research, software engineer here. We got lots of other stuff, introduction, artificial intelligence. Okay, lots of good talent, guys. What could we say? Lots of young new talent, aggressive, eager, and looking forward to what brings them to the next level. So lots of good stuff. What can I say? Then going on forward, we got Eric Weiner, CTO at Near AI. I thought I would put this individual in here in this conversation because given that they are focused on AI, and it seems like this individual is focusing completely on AI, and I'm looking at this and I'm not sure exactly where this is going, but is he focusing on AI in general? So it's based on Gemini. He has a history at Gemini, VP of engineering. So definitely good stuff here. So I am definitely keeping an eye on their AI visions going forward. But interesting, definitely interesting. Okay, guys. Technically speaking, the deep dive is concluded. We've covered all the major bases. So I'm going to show you that infographic as a quick summary as to what this project is all about. I'm going to put this all over the socials so you can use it for your own reference going forward. But let's do a quick summary here. Ecosystem. Their ecosystem is so broad and so involving, especially as an L1. I just decided to touch upon the categories that they're involved in. They got an ecosystem or projects or dApps built within the infrastructure ecosystem. And don't forget, they have their internal ecosystem, their native ecosystem that is proprietary to them. And I find that to be also amazing. But even if you're looking at a third-party applications coming in and being built on the L1, you got infrastructure, DeFi, NFTs, community gaming, and of course AI. The only reason I am giving it a 7 out of 10 because I think that their ecosystem hasn't had its major breakthrough yet. Like it hasn't really gotten mindshare. And you can kind of gauge based on other projects or other L1s. Near is not right there up front and center just yet. So the question is this: are we getting in at a point where there's calm before the storm, or are we getting to a point where maybe there won't be a storm? Guys, the reality is, if AI is going to pick up, I don't know any other project that is going to lead better than Near Protocol at the current moment. There are others, I'm very clear about that, and they're usually smaller market cap, and they're trying to compete with Near, right? But at the same time, their ecosystem, before it breaks out, usually there's some sideways. And this is what I am seeing. You can see that there's lots of applications, small applications, some bigger than others, some more innovative than others. Of course, that's the diversity of an ecosystem. But as soon as it breaks out, you're going to get a 10 out of 10 out of this. And that's when things start to go mainstream. That's when some applications start to go mainstream and they become, socialized all over socials and so on. Before that happens, we got to be real that their ecosystem right now is quiet. So maybe it's an opportunity here. So utility, we got 10 out of 10, guys. There's nothing more you can add to its coin utility, transaction fees, staking, governments, medium of exchange, burning mechanism. You got it. It's there. It's typical of an L1, but at least it goes full circle with its utility. Roadmap. Okay, so there's no real official roadmap that I was able to get my hands on, but there was a bit of documentation that I am definitely interested in, and I shared that with you guys. I feel like, a roadmap is very useful, just in the sense that, we could get a bit more clarity. But there's no official roadmap at the moment for 2025. Working groups, wallet improvements, these are things that they're focusing on and insinuated on some of the documentation. But without a proper roadmap and clarity, I don't know where we're going with things. So it would be nice to see maybe a team member, maybe the marketing individual that's behind the team, to kind of scrape through the DAO and give us an update as to what the DAO was focusing on. Maybe have it very clearly defined on a website or on a page of some sort. Because to have to dig through a DAO and dig through different proposals and things like that makes it very, a lot of friction for newcomers. So I'm keeping the retail investor very in mind here. The team, large team, lots of engineering talent. Google, Microsoft, and Gemini. So guys, 10 out of 10, young, hustling team, well established. Socials, they got lots of followers. Discord and Telegram are active. Large community should have more engagement. This is where I'm at here with this. I'm curious as to why it's such a case where they're not getting that much engagement. But then again, guys, calm before the storm maybe. And this is why I'm giving it a little bit of leeway to say 10 out of 10. All we need is a massive explosion of social engagement and shillers and people talking about it all over socials. And it's not happening just yet. So although they got the foundations with regards to their platforms on lockdown, there's not much happening on them given their size. So there's a bit of opportunity there. Tokenomics on point, guys. There's nothing else you could really ask for. As an L1 that is max supply, okay, their total supply is pretty much fully in circulation, almost, like literally by a few percent. Okay, so this is an ideal scenario. Obviously, we understand that there's going to be an annual inflation, but that annual inflation will be offset by their burning mechanism, which I already explained and should be very clear in your mind, because the more success we get from the network, the more burning will happen, and therefore the inflation will diminish. And there's a perfect point of equilibrium where in fact the burning mechanism will neutralize all the inflation to the point that it can be deflationary. Okay, and we're waiting for that opportunity, and it's all pegged to utility and ecosystem and obviously transactions. So total market cap is almost in full circulation, which means that we're not running too much risk of dilution. If there's going to be more tokens entering circulation via the total increasing, it's going to be a DAO scenario where, people are going to vote, they're going to, so on. But there is that 5% that happens to pay for reward validators. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. So it's slow and steady type of thing. Relationships, I think it's good, guys. I think they have some interesting ones. They have DWF Labs, AI, and I just focused on AI. There are other relationships that I was able to find on socials, announcements, and things like that. But I focused on AI here. So DWF Labs, AI Innovation, Delphi Labs, AI and Web3 Accelerator Program. These are like very interesting scenarios, because what they do is they help projects and deploy, and of course helping them means that their ecosystem is going to grow a lot faster. 01 Labs, Decentralized A Solution. So again, if you're interested in complete decentralized applications, where you got, full custody in mind, especially with regards to these AI agents, taking ownership of your AI agents or AI assets. Guys, this is where we're at right now. This is what Near Protocol wants to offer, a complete AI solution that allows you to take full ownership of your AI asset. Perfect. So good stuff here with these relationships. I appreciate them. And guys, I just to remember, there are relationships across many categories, the categories of which I mentioned up here, right here: gaming, infrastructure, DeFi, NFTs. They got a lot of good relationships out there, and it's expected as a large cap. It's expected as a project that's been around for a while. Okay, so keep that in mind. Exchanges, guys, it can't be listed on anymore. Any others would be smaller ones. It's out there. It's on Binance, Coinbase, KuCoin, Mexi, Bybit, everywhere. It's there. It might come out on some other smaller exchanges or DEXs or whatever the case is. But guys, if you're trading exchange listings, there's nothing really there. So it's a bonus that you got lots of liquidity across many exchanges. But if you're looking for upside potential based on exchange listings, guys, it's not going to happen. Okay, it's already out there everywhere. So it's good, it's solid. If you want to buy and you want to sell, it's very, very likely you're going to find liquidity on these exchanges. Okay, so good stuff overall, as you can see. Very clear. Tokenomics, just as I mentioned, as of when I did the research or started collecting some of this data, was at about $2.52. You can see that the market cap is at $3 billion, so it's quite large, but we have to understand that the overall total market cap of this crypto space has come down to about right now hovering around $3 trillion, which means that if we're going to go back to its previous high and start going for a higher high on total, we could expect that Near Protocol is also going to absorb some of that new fresh capital coming in. Okay, so we could expect a good upside potential. And what's very important to analyze here is the actual chart, which we're going to do in a second. Okay, so just understand that we got trading volume, which is pretty good, guys. 6% of a large cap, it's not bad. 200 million transaction trading volume, and this was, quite average. Supply, again, circulating supply, and if you look at the total, they're almost exact. So you're not expecting major unlocks or major tokens hitting the market and diluting the price based on unlocks. Okay, the max supply I explained already. It's infinite, but it's also controlled by that 5% inflation rate with the burn rate, and in addition, controlled by the DAO. Very likely, if proposals come in, we can see that. And fully diluted, you can see, is very similar to the market cap. So there's not a massive deviation there to worry about. Okay, so good stuff overall on Near. Very safe. Good narrative. What else do we got here? Let's see. Let me just kind of pivot over to the verdict, and we'll talk about what I expect in the near future. So look, ultimately, it's a great project. I think it's undervalued personally. I think it has a lot to offer in the next little while. I think if you're looking for safety, there is no project that is 100% safe, but based on its market cap and based on its foundation, based on its track record and everything, and its connections and relationships within the industry, I think that it's one of the safer plays out there. And it could be one of those projects that run first before we start to see a lot of the other AI projects show strength. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at. An L1, it's an AI focused centric project right now. Deep in compute, abstraction, interoperability, sharding, EVM compatible, and I am sure I am missing others because there's lots of little details, but I think I got the major ones here, what we should be bullish on with regards to its tech stack. Okay, so interesting stuff. 5% annual inflation we talked about, 90% of which goes to validators in exchange for computing, storage, and securing the transactions. And this is what makes us interested, is because as long as we are active computing, storaging, securing, and all that other stuff, we have an active ecosystem, and we are happy and pleased to pay validators to make this happen. And that's what makes the network strong. 10% will go to the foundation for a bit of grease to get this project keep on going and so on. Have a bit of funding, which is fine as long as we're growing and we can recirculate some of that capital into the foundation that is healthy. Infinite supply, but burning mechanism will keep that at bay. So keep that in mind. As volume increase, transaction volume increases, the burning rate will have more of an influence. AI, user owned AI, guys, this is probably one of the most interesting things that separates it from the majority of the AI projects out there. Guys, launchpads after launchpads have been released within the last few months, and we're talking about launching AI agents that are completely centralized, unfortunately. And a lot of us in this market, including myself, got interested, very speculative. It was, fun. It looked interesting. Near Protocol is not taking that approach. Its approach is literally complete traditional fundamentals and utility, and providing everything that the other launchpads couldn't, which in this case, it all boils down to user-owned, self-custody AI. Okay, and this is brought to us by all those value propositions that I discussed today. So I think that this is awesome. Now there's the incubator, the Horizon Incubator program that is helping projects that want to get involved into this narrative. Again, they're focusing on this narrative so much that they're also providing an incubator program for developers to come in and help grow their AI basically ecosystem. Interesting, very interesting, and I support this, right? So DAO defines the roadmaps and agenda. We talked about that. Ecosystem needs a breakthrough. Definitely. I think right now it's a little bit stagnant. I don't think there's anything major that really allowed Near Protocol to get on the map at the current moment. That's what we're waiting for. Which project, which app or dApp, whether it be native or a third party or whatever it is, what are we going to get? Which one of these projects are actually going to make it to the grand stage to bring Near Protocol on the map, to incentivize individuals to hold and get in on their DeFi? That's the major idea here. Okay, so let's look at the overall projection. Now, Near with the market cap of ADA. Now, for those of you who might say, why ADA? Well, it's just because in general, ADA is a large cap. ADA is at a level where a lot of L1s would like to be with regards to market cap. Its ecosystem is, in fact, also lagging a little bit in that no breakthrough zone. It is not specialized in AI whatsoever, but it's not the point. It's an L1, and we're talking about L1s, right? And that's what Near Protocol is. You can deploy a game on Near Protocol. It's not just AI. Just because their focus is AI doesn't mean that as an L1 it cannot, host anything. It could. So I said, Cardano would be a good comparison here, and still comparing it to Cardano's, on an 8x. But if you look at the price, right? In this case, Near would only be at $21. And if you look at the Near price and its chart, which we'll do in a second, you will note that $21 is not even close to previous high. So price projection wise, we're hoping, of course, lots of hopium here in this space, that we are going to get an all-time highs in price discovery scenario, and at least getting to an extension level where we can say, you know what, we made a higher high in comparison to last cycle's bull run. That's all we want, guys. That's all this market wants. So I'm anticipating that the total market cap will exceed the previous highs and maybe get to $5-6 trillion. And if that's the case, it is likely that Near Protocol not only will in this case get to about $21, but also attract more capital to make it go higher. And Cardano will attract its own capital as well, and most likely maybe continue moving up and maybe continue being higher in market cap than Near Protocol. I'm not saying it's going to flip it. I'm just saying that right now, both Cardano or any other L1, any projects are both at the bottoms waiting to attract capital. And it's game on. Which project is going to attract the most, right? That's the way I look at it. Now, I give it 9 out of 10, guys. As you know, the tech is good. Everything is good. The narrative is good. The foundations behind what it's built on, the complete decentralized compute and DePIN infrastructure with regards to, storage and everything. Like, guys, it is a full-on system that they got going on here. And, it has a lot of potential going forward. If there's any project out there that could be multi-cycle within the AI agent narrative, I think it's going to be Near Protocol. Okay, so that's that. All right, guys, I know you're here to talk about charts. So let's begin. Let's see what's going on here with the Near chart, because literally a lot of us are worried. Are we coming down for further dips, or are we going to continue to the upside here, because we did get a bit of green in the last little while? Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. So Near Protocol, obviously, like many others, are in a downtrend, and today, taking a bit of a hit on range highs, it is part of the game. And for me, I don't really care, right? Because ultimately I know where we're at. I know that this is, potentially the best time to buy. And ultimately, and this is not, I'm not talking about Near, I'm talking about every project out there. It's a buyer's market because we've sold off significantly. Now the question is that do we come down here, at $1? It's possible, guys. I'm prepared for that mentally, psychologically, economically. I'm prepared for the market to come down further. But the likelihood of that to happen after such an impulsive move to the upside where we are right now in most charts, and I know I'm talking in general because we got to think about the whole space in general, including Bitcoin, of course, as an indicator, it does look like we're beginning a proper change of character with market structure. Now, Near, on the other hand, does not show that. It's still making lower lows and lower highs. So what do we do here? If we start looking at what's happening here on this chart at this current moment, the bears have a lot of incentive to consider this a rejection, right? And obviously we have trend line, a bit of trend line liquidity perhaps got trapped up in here. And it's very likely that we, potentially come down as low as $1.90, maybe even lower, maybe $1.80. 89, 85, $85. That's all very possible. You can see this is a very critical area. Why? Because if we break below there, we make a lower low. And if that's the case, the trend maintains, and where the trend is your friend. So what we have to understand is trend lines are very difficult. Why? Because trend lines attract liquidity, and most of the times they attract retail liquidity, and market makers love trapping up or basically taking retail liquidity. So you got to be careful with trading trend lines only. You got to find confluence. And when you start looking at the previous historical price action, yeah, it looks pretty good. Am I getting into any very clear horizontal support levels other than a bit of a point of control? Yeah, sure, but nothing major. This is a big fat wall of volume, and we're chipping away at it a little by little. As you can see, like none of this was respected up until this level here, which is fine for me. But if you start looking at the price, what evidence do we have that we're actually going to not make a lower low? We have none. We have none. And this is typical of a lot of projects currently on the market. There is no change of character or definitive indications of potential shift to the upside. So what do we have to do? We have to continue being patient to find those signals. So for me, I bought a little bit of proxy. I bought some Aurora yesterday. I bought some Ref. I bought some. It doesn't mean that I go all in. I want a bit of exposure. Why? Because if you start looking at bigger picture, get onto the weekly, guys, we're good. We're fine. Look where I'm buying. If we reclaim and come back to the other levels, higher levels, these DCAs that I do into here, I won't care because I'll be up significantly. So you have to understand, the time frame that you're playing, the objective that you have, the position size that you're deploying. Right now, as we speak, it does look like Near Protocol is going to end up looking for a higher low. And a lot of projects have already achieved the higher low. Near Protocol has not achieved the higher low, which in this case would be the first step of the change of character. So let me just put this up here. And I've been putting this on a lot of my charts in the last little while. Why? Because I want to keep this in mind. The change of character is an important market structure theory or scenario where you start to see a higher high or a higher low in a downtrend. So as you can see, we're clearly in a downtrend on the daily. Now, if the bearish response comes down, it gives us a higher low, and we confirm this higher low by making a higher high, and we confirm the higher high by breaking above and essentially breaking above and closing a daily candle above, guys, we finally start making higher highs and higher lows, and this starts to look like a perfect pivot point structure. Now, could there be early indications of this happening? Sure, there could be multiple drives of divergence, which we'll look at right now. Let's see what's going on with the divs and the oscillators. Do I got anything right here? Let's see. On the daily, we're overbought on volatility, so I can expect a bearish response, maybe even leading into the end of today, maybe in tomorrow. Remember, Sundays, Mondays, Asia market waking up tonight might, bring the price down a little bit. But really, big picture, look at this bottom, look at this bottom, look at this bottom. Now let's follow the impulses of momentum. Okay, and I'm going to kind of make this a bit bigger, and I'm going to rearrange this so we can see it a bit better. And I just want to follow the momentum here. This bottom, look where we were. Okay, this bottom, look where we were. Okay, generally speaking, this bottom, look where we are. Pretty much, because we're still dealing with this. Now, this expansion was diverging. Lower lows in the price action, higher lows in the momentum. Perfect. This one here came down a little bit harder than expected, but did not make a lower low. Okay, so this is important because we're still in an uptrend with regards to momentum. The momentum line, the purple line, is still in an uptrend. We are now in the chop zone, which means that, usually in the chop zone is when we get a little bit of sideways action, which could be defined like this. And then eventually when we break above the chop zone with a bit of volume, which is the 50% mark, this right here, we break above and get overbought, which is the price gets up on this side of the chart, similar to what happened here. Okay, we want to slowly trend to the upside. What's going to happen, we're going to get multiple drives of divergence, which we are seeing here on the chart, both momentum and expansions happening, while at the same time we are waiting for the proper change of characters that suggests that we are no longer going to make a lower low, and in fact we're going to make a higher high. The bears are not strong enough to make a lower low. That's the evidence that we need. Now, where we can get that evidence is from the volatility line, the orange line. If the orange line comes down to get completely oversold down here, and the price did not make a lower low, at best case scenario, it makes a higher low, even a double bottom, guys, we know that the bears are done. We know they're weak. It's not possible. And upon the bullish response, when we go back up, we are now trading volatility and momentum in the same direction. Momentum being uptrending, volatility now in the uptrend. What we could see is now a bullish response that gives us a higher high. And if that's the case, we confirm the change of character and market structure. Okay, very ideal. Now, just keep in mind that when this happens, there's a bit of volatility. There could be a bit of manipulation through all of this because, of course, a lot of people are trading these market structure shifts and pivots and all this kind of stuff. And, these are the ideal times to get people wrecked. And this is one of the reasons why within this range, while we are turning from bearish to bullish in a slow moving way and a nice rounded bottom scenario, perhaps, I like just dealing with spot. And if I'm going to take any extra risk, it's a low leverage positions, 3x, 2x maximum, and just hang on tight. Once we break to the upside on the confirmation low, on the higher low, we can start getting in on with a bigger position, like right here, because then you know where to invalidate yourself, especially. Guys, I'm just going to throw this out here, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit because actually, before I do that, let me get rid of some of this artwork so we can have some clarity and neatness here on the chart. I'm already a messy guy, so we might as well make it a bit neat. And let's get rid of the oscillators for a second. And I just wanted to show you the importance of getting above some of this. This right here is very important. Now, I know it doesn't look that important because we don't have, the volume gap is not massive, but it's an attraction level. It's a level of where the price is going to get attracted eventually. We have the 200 daily EMA right there. We got the previous bottom, lots of liquidity here, lots of emotion based on this small volume gap. I'm expecting this to be a nice target for the price to get to. So let's see what happens in the next little while, because if we do get that pivot point, I can expect it to run to this level, maybe take a bit of a break for a quick exchange of hands, and then maybe continue to the upside. But before we get bullish, we need to see that market structure right into here suggest that we're ready to change direction, and then maybe take that long to here and worry about what happens at that level, because it could take a bit of a breather and then allow us to lower it up more, take a bit of profit, buy in again, maybe continue to the upside, and so on. Because ultimately what we're waiting for is Bitcoin. A lot of us are worried about Bitcoin getting a retracement because Bitcoin has been doing very well, and today we're seeing a bit of a dip. Even if it's less than 1%, it's a bit of a dip. The market is coming down a little bit, so we're a little bit worried. So what we're waiting for is that. Now let's get on lower time frames. Actually, before we do that, let's take a look at the trend oscillator. Trend oscillator is doing pretty good. Let's make that bigger. Well, what did I do there? Hold on. There we go. You can see it's looking okay. It is trending to the upside in the sense that it's looking to get into the bullish control zone. EMA is facing up. We got the purple expansions coming in. Look at the last time the purple expansions came in, right? And we got into the bullish control zone, right? This is what we got to wait for. Now, there's a bit of shakeout sometimes as we trek to the upside, as you can see. But eventually we get the expansions. Eventually we do get the bullishness. Now, when we get this bullishness out of this bearishness, look at this. Look at these expansions, smaller. Bearish responses are getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Eventually we get to the bullish side of things and we start running. Okay, so during these moments is where people get shaken out, they get totally wrecked. Low leverage, low scenarios will eventually allow you to accumulate in this area for that bullish response. Once we get the confirmations, we can get more risk on and introduce a little bit of leverage into our strategies. That's the way I play it, guys, slow and steady. And as of now, we are seeing a bit of a dip. Now, again, I'm not worried until we break below this low. At this point, any dips should be bought, especially as we get confirmations of a bottom on this dip. Wait for momentum to volatility to get oversold here. Let's get onto the 4-hour real quick, and you can see what I'm trying to say here. We're getting a bit of follow through to the downside. We got our first confirmation high, a lower high. We're getting a bit of follow through on the momentum. You can see rolling over here. Volatility might hang out here a little longer than expected, as it has done before when we do see a bit of a downtrend. Now it could happen again, just stay here a little bit more. But then on a bullish response, look what could happen here, guys. Look what happened last time. Volatility went up and hung out here and totally rallied. Is this a bit of a dip? Who knows how low we go? And then we get that confirmation low, like I mentioned, higher low, and then we go up for a higher high. And then back to the big picture on the daily. What does that look like? Something like this, right? And then everybody change a character, let's get going. Okay, so slow and steady, guys. There's no rush at this current moment. We've endured quite a bit of a dip. I'm just waiting to see if we get oversold completely and see how low we go on the lower time frames. Even the 1 hour might give us that signal. We're not completely oversold even on the 1 hour. So you can see the expansion coming in still. We got some time for downwards pressure still. Again, beginning of the week on Monday, we could see some volatility Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then again we recycle through the weekend next week to see what happens overall. Because ultimately, it's all about Bitcoin. Bitcoin takes a dip. We're going to see a lot of these altcoins take a dip. And in addition to that, if you see Bitcoin rally really hard, it is very likely that it will suck liquidity out of a lot of the altcoins, including Near Protocol. But the recovery upon rotation out of Bitcoin will be epic. So pay attention to that scenario as well. All right, guys, if I've offered you any value here, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description below. Feel free to join the Discord, guys. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setup, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Guys, I'm live every night at 8 p.m. talking about crypto news and price action. Have a good one, and don't forget, buy the dip.